All right, so in the last video, we explored a little bit about the component and the fact that the index is the controller or the driver of this application, if you will, and that we had in our index.html, we had a directive that is the name of a component that's going to be plopped in between this open and closing app root directive. And we saw that we only needed to write our index, all of our structure once, and that was in this index.html, and all of our code was going to be placed in to our directives here in the body. We saw that we had a folder that was created on our behalf called app, and in this folder there was 4 files, one of which we deleted. We haven't looked at this app module yet, so I'm going to ignore that again for the moment. There was this app.component.css, which says for this component called app that this is CSS style specific to that particular component. Here was all the HTML that's being rendered automatically for us. And in fact, if you look at the top here, at the very top, now we're starting to see it says this is only a placeholder and can be replaced. Delete the template file to get started with your project. Okay, so we're going to do that in a moment. If I look at the app component.ts file, this is where our component was created. We have a class which we haven't really utilized yet, but we have been told that we need to have this class, and it's called app component. By convention, we use this word component just to indicate that this is a component. In fact, remember that this is metadata, so this is information that is provided to Angular. And one of those pieces of information is this is that directive, that user-defined element that we created in our index page, in which we are going to put, or Angular is going to put this HTML file in between the open and closing app root element, and would also utilize this CSS style sheet for this particular component, not for the whole website, just for this component. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually look at this app component.html file, and we're just going to delete it. So I'm going to Control-Alt and delete it, and we'll just make something simple for now, just for demonstration. And hello, my first app. Now, because I still had the server running, you can see it's compiling successfully. And if I head up, which I do not, if I head up my index page, which I'm going to pull over here, let's see if I can put these side by side so we can see them together. Minimize that so we can see these all together. And remember, I can type in the word localhost and then 4200. And so now I should be able to see, in fact, that came up, hello, my first app. So recognize what was happening there, and that is that, if you remember, we got that all together. We have this app root directory, and then we had a component, app component, which is our file that was placed into that app, what was it called? That was placed in our app root directive, and that was defined here in our app component TS. So go pull out this app component HTML. So right off the bat, we can put some stuff in here. All right, what if, let's see, we're not utilizing this title at all, so I'm going to put something here in title like, I don't know, this is pretty cool. So let's see how this works. So this is a property of the app component. I haven't done anything with it. You can see that all this compiling happened, but nothing is changing on my HTML page. And so now we're going to start to do what's called data binding. We're going to take the value that was placed into this property and we'll put it into our app. So maybe we'll do a H2 element, and in here we're going to put that data. So we're going to put it in open and closed curly braces. Now I'm just going to put spaces just for readability. You don't have to. And then I'm going to put in the name of that property that was provided in the class. So if I look at the class, it said the property's name was title. So I'm going to put the word title in here, T-I-T-L-E, and save that. And now we see that that information is being sent, data binding is being sent into our component and being displayed in our directive, through our directive. Okay? So kind of backwards, but I'm still going to do it anyway. Now this kind of makes more sense in the fact that we're creating smaller components as opposed to all of that HTML that was coming up before. So now we have to start thinking about sections of code. Components is really the ideal going on here. All right, so just for to complete a demonstration, here we had a template URL and we defined a HTML file to utilize in the, to plop inside of that app root. You can also just do a template. So I'm going to replace the word template URL with template, and I'm going to use the backticks, open and close backticks. And in here, I'm going to put something like a div, and then maybe in here I'll put my data binding, div title, and then I'm going to put an end div, and then end that with a comma. And now if I save that, you should see that the template is being utilized instead of that HTML file. So remember, the component is just a way to define to Angular how that component should work. So here we're saying we're going to give you a literal template as opposed to go out and utilize this HTML file as your template. Either way, whichever is in template or template URL, plop that into our directive, which was on our index page. Hopefully this repetitive, doing this over and over again is helping. So let's just finish off this idea by looking at our app.component. And maybe this is, again, specific just to this app. So let's see, we had an H1 tag, so I might make an H1. Let's make the color red just so it's going to show up. And when I save it, it should show red, which it didn't. So why did it not show red? Let's go back to our template, which is in components. And did I do it as an H1? No, I can't remember what I did. So I think I did it as an H1, but I don't have an H1. So I think I'll put in an H1 now so that my style sheet will make sense. And save that. And now my H1 is red, so that's cool. All right. Recognize that we have a style sheet. So this is a global style sheet. This applies to all of my web pages, and I say quote web pages because remember, it's all being displayed on the index.html page, but to the user it's going to look like there's lots of pages, and we'll see that coming up here next week when we talk more about routing. So maybe on the main page, on all of the pages, I want the background color to be gray. So maybe I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and save that. So now the background's gray on all of the pages, although in this case we only have one particular page so far that we've started. And let's see, was there something else I wanted to display? I think that was everything that I wanted to do on this module. I forgot, there was one other thing I wanted to show. On this index.html page, we do have this app root directive. We can still put other stuff on here if you wanted to, like if you wanted to have globally across everything, H1, welcome, something like that. So recognize that the only thing that on your index page, it doesn't have to just be this app root directive. There could be an H1 tag, or what you might see coming up is the potential to put other components. Like if we do a nav header, which we haven't created yet, but if we had done a nav header, then that would have automatically put whatever component information we created would display there. And maybe we also created a footer component of some kind. So that would go here, component. I'm just writing the word component just for a visual. So here you start to see that we're building a page based on components, and then we can create those components here in our folders, and we'll do that in some upcoming videos. So hopefully this is all starting to gel together.